webinar today. We have a lot of information to go through, and we are really excited. Again, this is Matt Burnell with ClickBid. I may have gotten myself started a little bit too early, but we have a lot of information we're excited to get to today. I just have a few housekeeping items before we pass it off to Julia. And the first is that this will be recorded. So if you miss something or have to cut out a little bit early, that's okay. We'll be able to give you a recording after the event. And then second, we have a chat room. You can go ahead and chat some questions, put some things in there, put some questions that you'd like us to answer. I'll be monitoring that when I hand it over to Julia, and I can answer those as well. And so let's just get right to it. I'd like to welcome Julia Beltran to the program, and go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. I'm really excited to be here today with all of you guys, talk a little bit about CSR, a little bit about matching gifts, and just kind of how we can drive those sources of revenue. So as a bit of a formal introduction to me, my name is Julia Beltran. I'm on the partnerships team here at Double the Donation. And so that just means I have the pleasure of working with our different partner platforms like ClickBid to help nonprofits raise more matching gift revenue, help bring more matching gift resources to different fundraisers. And so Double the Donation not only provides matching gift automation software, but we also serve as a sort of resource hub that specializes in a lot of different fundraising resources and research and education, just with the goal of helping as many fundraisers as possible take advantage of different avenues of corporate philanthropy, one of the most common being matching gift funds. And so really excited to be on here today presenting alongside ClickBid. I hope you guys enjoy hearing our presentation. And like Matt said, feel free to use the chat bar throughout the presentation to ask any questions that you guys may have. And so getting into our agenda, I know, as we all know, the focus of this presentation is corporate social responsibility. So I'm going to start with a bit of an industry overview, kind of in that realm. I do want to pause here and mention, matching gifts are the most common form of corporate social responsibility, and they're really easy to harness. So that's definitely going to be a big focus of the different kind of industry insights that we share today. And so this first section here is really designed to give you, the context you need to implement some of the best practices that we're going to go over in section 2. And so in that section, we're really going to dive into the best ways to drive CSR funds, right? We're going to explore the ways that you can harness the power of CSR and ensure that you're not leaving any leftover revenue on the table. And so during that section, I'm also going to go over some different, automation options you can access through Double the Donation and ClickBid. And then, like we said, we'll have an opportunity for questions at the end. Please feel free to put the questions in the chat as they come up, and then we can kind of get to it at the end of the session and do that final Q&A piece. And so before I dive into our industry review, I do want to give a little bit of context on the Double the Donation and ClickBid relationship, in case maybe you found out about this presentation from either one of us and you're kind of curious why we've come together today to give this presentation. And so we've been partnered for a little while now, and through that partnership, Double the Donation is able to offer matching gift services to ClickBid clients. So I'm sure a lot of people, in this presentation room right now, they work with ClickBid already, maybe use their high converting, impressive platform. And so through this partnership, you can actually add matching gift automation to their list of offered functionality. So just to kind of summarize that, Double the Donation is a third-party company, and it provides gift matching tools, which can be integrated directly into ClickBid to earn more revenue in that source. All right, and so kicking things off, getting into the industry review. Like I mentioned, this section is really designed to give you a lot of insight into the space, and then you can then kind of use that context to get into best practices and automation options. So I'm first going to zoom way out here and kind of start with the very, very basic idea. So when I talk about corporate social responsibility or CSR, what exactly am I referring to, right? And so you probably know that, this is related to corporations trying to improve society in some way. And it's obvious how that can benefit nonprofits, right? But it also really benefits the companies that create these programs. And that's because, consumers and employees alike are going to be more engaged with ethically conscious brands. It's a huge trend that we've seen in the space recently. And so I think it's important to note when you're thinking about CSR fundraising and CSR programs that this isn't really just about a company being charitable. It also contributes to the actual success of the company itself. So CSR programs are really mutually beneficial to both your nonprofit and the company making that initial investment. So it's kind of different, right, than like having these direct donor appeals or talking to your individual givers about their gifts. When you're thinking about corporate philanthropy, this is a business strategy for a lot of different organizations. And so it's really cool that it's kind of this, organizational, mutual, beneficial fund that you guys can have together. And definitely something to think about as you pursue these avenues, that these companies are both doing it as their own marketing, and then it can also benefit your organization as well. And so CSR can mean a lot of different things. We, of course, have corporate philanthropy. So, corporations make financial contributions to fundraisers. And then we have corporate volunteerism. So, corporations impacting the volunteer operations of nonprofits or educational institutions. And then we kind of go into some other adjacent elements, like things like environmental leadership, maybe ethical labor practices, um, and even economic responsibility. And so, your organization can certainly directly influence and be influenced by those kind of final three pieces that I mentioned. But I really primarily want to focus on the first item here today, and that's corporate philanthropy. And that's because it's going to be the easiest and most straightforward avenue for you to directly harness for your organization. So that's not to say, obviously, that the other facets like aren't important or can't be part of an informed CSR strategy, but rather that if you're kicking off this process or even trying to refine, your own CSR fundraising initiatives, that's really going to be the place that you start is with corporate philanthropy programs here. So these CSR programs have this really defined structure and straightforward way that you can get involved. And so, programs offered through corporate philanthropy are very widespread. We see millions of individuals qualify for these types of programs, which of course can then lead to billions of dollars being donated through corporate philanthropy every single year. And so, as you probably know or figured, corporate philanthropy is, of course, the process in which a corporation is actually funding directly to a nonprofit. And that can happen through a lot of different ways. So sometimes it might be a corporate partnership, sometimes it might be a grant program, and most commonly it's through a matching gift program. And so when you're thinking about these opportunities, I think it's important to note that corporate philanthropy can occur both through, existing programs, existing avenues, but then also through new programs created either by the corporation themselves or even maybe by your nonprofit that you kind of want to trailblaze or go through some kind of corporate sponsorship to create a new program. And so I think when you're thinking about that in regards to your organization, you should know that there are probably a lot of existing programs that you already qualify for and that you can research and find opportunities for, but that you also have this option to kind of start new conversations with businesses maybe in your community or that you have some kind of tie to really learn how to kick off these corporate initiatives. And so now zooming in a little bit further to matching gifts. This is the source of fundraising that I keep flagging. Because matching gifts are, of course, a form of corporate philanthropy, and it's actually the most common form of corporate philanthropy that we see. So companies offer benefits like this, like matching gifts, for many reasons. There's tax incentives, it's a retention strategy for their own employees, maybe their own CSR marketing initiative. But the point is that corporate philanthropy is this really common business strategy, and that we see matching gifts come from companies again and again. And so most matching gift programs do have like their own unique parameters or guidelines, but the vast majority of them are going to follow the same general flow. And that flow is that, a donor submits a gift to your organization. The donor can then submit a matching gift request to their employer. The company would actually approve or deny that request depending on, the parameters, the guidelines that they set up. And then that company actually issues the payment directly to your organization. And so that's kind of a general outline, but most matching gifts are going to follow those programs, but just have those kind of guidelines I mentioned in step 3. And so when it comes to those components, I can go into each one of those here. And the first one is going to be organization eligibility. And so you might have guessed that, not every single organization qualifies for a matching gift program. So it's like, obviously, the organization has to be a fundraising organization. It has to be either a nonprofit or educational institution. We do see the majority of companies match to the majority of 501c3 organizations. Every now and then they might exclude certain like political orgs or maybe something that's like a strictly religious organization. But in general, most fundraisers qualify for the majority of matching gift programs. And so then number 2, we have matching gift ratio. And so you think of like a matching gift program as having a kind of one-to-one match, right? But not all matching gift programs offer that exact match strategy. So many companies do offer that, one-to-one ratio, but others will actually double or even triple an employee's donation. And that can sometimes even depend on the donor's employment status or the kind of nonprofits receiving the funds. So like, for example, let's just say there's a corporation that makes dog food. Maybe they'll actually match any donations to an animal shelter, like an animal services nonprofit, at a 2-to-1 ratio, but then they'll match donations to like a standard nonprofit at a 1-to-1 ratio. Or maybe even we see some companies will like match retired employees at a 1-to-1 ratio, but then they'll match full-time current employees at a 2-to-1 ratio, something like that. And so that kind of segues perfectly into the third item we have here, which is employee eligibility. So some companies will only match gifts from full-time employees, but I actually see that becoming more and more rare as a lot of different companies' corporate philanthropy programs improve. So many companies will match part-time employees' donations from full-time employees, of course. And then some of the top programs, like from really big companies, will even match for retirees or even the spouses of current or retired employees. So that's really important to note when thinking about fundraising, right? That even if you have a donor that maybe works for this huge corporation that's like really CSR heavy, or excuse me, you have a donor whose like spouse works for someone, the corporation that's really like CSR heavy, they might be able to actually request a matching gift on behalf of their spouse and still get that fulfilled. And so then number 4, we have gift amount. So every program is going to set this maximum and minimum donation amount that they're able to match. And these parameters vary really widely just depending on the program. Though I will say most companies set their minimums between about $1 and $100. I'd guess the most common minimum we see is about $25. And then maximums are going to range between maybe $1,000 and $15,000. Most Fortune 500 level corporations are going to come in around $10,000 here. And then number 5, and this one's very important, that there's always some sort of expiration date surrounding matching gift requests. So some companies might give their employee maybe a year after the donation to kind of submit that request to get their gift matched. Other companies will set actually like specific dates with the deadline, so maybe timed around the end of the calendar year, tax season, something like that. Just important to note that like if you have a donor that submitted a gift and you find out they're match eligible 3 years later, it's pretty likely that you don't need to make that matching gift appeal because they probably already missed their program's deadlines. And so just important to note here that when you think about matching gifts as part of your CSR strategy, don't forget that these programs are not all exactly the same. So your donors are going to have to actually navigate these different parameters when they request a gift matched. And so we'll kind of get into the best practices of how to account for these parameters, but really for a lot of different CSR programs and matching gifts especially, you want to make sure that your donors are informed of these different guidelines so that they actually feel empowered to take action on matching gifts and feel like they're able to submit their request and know that they'll be able to qualify for it. And so I know I mentioned it before that matching gifts are the most common form of corporate philanthropy. And you can see it's actually a much larger industry than I think a lot of people, even fundraisers, realize. So we see well over half of Fortune 500 companies, offering matching gift programs. And that, of course, means that millions and millions of individuals are eligible for gift matching programs. And that's not even to mention, of course, all of the companies who are not Fortune 500, but still offer these programs because there are plenty of companies that are different sizes that still are able to match to employees, even if they're not, these huge conglomerates or something like that. And so that means that if you have donors who work for any one of these companies, then their donations could very easily be doubled. And as we know, sometimes even tripled, right? Without asking these donors for any more of their own dollars. They're not reaching back in their pocket to get more money for your organization. And they're still able to make that contribution go twice as far. And so despite the fact that this is, this giant industry clearly and has these improving programs, like I mentioned before, we still see a lot of nonprofits actually missing out on employer matching gifts. And so by that, I mean that they're actually missing out on billions of dollars. We see $4 to $7 billion in matching gift revenue going unclaimed each year. And so by that, I mean that, we know corporations are offering these programs. We know, of course, that donors are making donations, but no one's actually tying those donations back to the corporate entity that might be able to match the gift. And I know when you think about that, maybe like in regards to your fundraising efforts, it can be like a bit shocking to know that these programs are designed for you. Like, maybe you have donors that qualify right now, but you might be missing out on that cash. So I think the natural question, right, is like, why the discrepancy? Like, why is there this huge amount of money that's going unclaimed every single year? And I think to answer that question, we kind of have to go back to the matching gift flow that I shared before. Because if a donor wants to get their gift matched, they have to submit a matching gift request to their employer. So that means that after the donor makes that contribution, they would then have to submit their request, which tells their employer, the donation amount, maybe send their receipt, their proof of purchase. Then they'd have to get the request approved based on the guidelines I shared before. And then your organization would receive the matching gift fund. And so it's really step 2 here where we see the problem coming up, that donors are not actually submitting matching gift requests to their employer. And so the reason that happens is actually because donors don't really know that that's an option for them. We see close to 80% of match eligible donors being just totally unaware that their employer offers a matching gift program. And so that's going to leave only 7% of match eligible donors actually submitting the matching gift request, which is kind of shocking to think about, right? I mean, that's a very small percentage of people who could double their donation that are actually taking the steps to pursue that avenue of giving. And so I think that lack of donor action is really actually a lack of awareness. Because even if your donors maybe do know that matching gift programs exist, maybe that's something they've heard of, they probably don't understand the steps that they actually have to take to pursue their matching gift request. And I think that makes a lot of sense, if you think about it. Like, I don't really know many people outside of this industry who are familiar with matching gift programs, who understand the steps that they'd have to take. And so despite this being this widespread program offering, we really don't see a lot of donors being fully informed of their matching gift programs. And so they really don't realize that that's an option for them. And I think, that this idea that donors want to submit a request, but that they don't really know how, is really exemplified through a lot of the research that we find at Double the Donation. So if you look at the statistics I have on the screen here, you can see that donors are more likely to donate if their gifts are going to be matched. They're more likely to respond to fundraising appeals mentioning matching. And they're actually more likely to donate even more money if they know that their gift's going to be matched. And so I think when you think about it, all of this makes a lot of sense, right? You know that your donors are people that care about your cause. They already want to help your mission. And so, of course, they're going to feel happy knowing that they gave this contribution to the cause that they care about. And so, this is an avenue for them to increase their initial donation at no cost to them. So it's very clear that this is something that can be very inspiring and engaging in giving. And so if a donor wants to submit a request and then they don't know how, or they don't know about their programs, then the main problem we actually need to solve for is what we call the donor awareness gap. So donors, they know about these programs, or excuse me, they don't know about these programs, but if they were just educated about gift matching, then they consistently show that they're going to take action. And so, of course, then the question kind of becomes like, how do we educate your donors, right? There's probably already a lot of information that you want to convey to these supporters. And so, what are the avenues that we can kind of get this message across? And that's really what we'll cover in today's best practices. And so, even though we're really focused on this from the matching gift perspective, you can certainly apply this knowledge to volunteer grants, to other corporate philanthropy pieces, general giving campaigns, because it's always a good idea to be thinking about the best ways to reach your donors and educate them on a range of different topics, right, that you think you should inform their giving process and their relationship with your organization. So kicking things right off with best practices, the first one I want to talk about really starts on the donation form. And this is really important actually for any form of corporate social responsibility. So this best practice involves capturing employer information on your online gift. And so I mentioned before, right, all these different programs offer matching, all these different corporations offer matching gift programs, but that all of these programs have different parameters, right? So it can be really hard to talk to your donors about matching gifts if you don't first know which of your donors actually qualify for matching gift programs, or maybe that you don't know, what sort of parameters are offered through the program that they work for. And so making sure that you kind of have a gauge of where your donors work can be a great way to then later on tailor your communication strategy and make sure that you're talking to the right donors about the right topics, right? And so what I recommend is just putting a field on the donation form where you can capture employment information, but making sure that your donors know why you're asking for it. I recommend saying something, if it's specifically about matching gifts, enter your company name to learn more about gift matching, or maybe something just really short and sweet about that, about entering company information for corporate philanthropy practices. And then, of course, keeping a record of where your donors work so that you can track valuable giving opportunities, whether that's through matching gift programs or like I've even seen, nonprofits, maybe they'll notice that a ton of their donors work for the same company. That's a really great way to know which corporations would be a good candidate for like a corporate sponsorship program, right? Like if you have a ton of people that already work for the same organization or in the same industry, that's definitely something you should be aware of in the realm of corporate social responsibility fundraising. And so the next best practice I want to mention involves the confirmation page of your donation form. And so you've probably already seen, or maybe you even already have, plenty of like calls to action on your confirmation page. It's obviously a great place to kind of kick off that process, right? And so I think that that's a great place to also house any kind of call to action about matching gifts or CSR in general. I think that when doing that, though, definitely important to give donors really clear directions for, what next steps you want them to do. Maybe if there's anything that they should know before they kick off that process, you can include that on the confirmation page as well. And I think that that's really a cool place to start that conversation, not only because you have more real estate than maybe you normally would, but also because you're capturing donors when that request is going to be really timely. Because you probably already know that donors feel really engaged during the giving process itself. And so you don't want to stop them in their momentum, right? You want to make sure you capture them when they still have that sort of giving mindset and when they're still feeling really charitable and happy to make requests for your organization. And so then the third best practice I have in here involves sending matching gift emails. And so I think that this might seem like kind of a simple concept, but there's actually some nuances that I think are important to touch on. And so the first one is the importance of painting a picture in these kind of appeals. Because as we know, that your donors probably have never heard of matching gift requests or those programs in general. So if you send kind of a vague email asking your donor to ask their employer to match their gift, they might think that that sounds like kind of an odd request, right? Like, why would I ask my employer to match this gift that I just made? And you also don't really know, like, your donors could have just started a new job. Maybe they have varying relationships with their work. If they've never heard of a gift matching program, then they really are going to need some context so that they know it's like a common request regarding this philanthropy program that probably already exists. So I really recommend zooming out here and painting a picture. You can maybe even use some of the stats that I shared today. Something like, did you know that 65% of Fortune 500 companies match the contributions made by their employees? You should reach out to your HR department, see if your employer is one of the ones that will match, to our institution, help us further our mission, something like that. And I've even seen a lot of organizations actually be really, really cute with this appeal and get really creative with it. And you can do that a lot with like tying it back to impact, right? So like maybe showing how a matching gift can impact like not just one student athlete, but two. Or maybe it can make, a scholarship go twice as far. Maybe it could care for like twice as many puppies, something like that. Like whatever your cause is, whatever your mission is, connecting it back to how a matching gift doubles the impact can be a really effective way to encourage your donors to look into those programs. And so next I want to talk about the timing of these emails. So you could, of course, send these as appeals, just like in your newsletter and your general communications. But I think it's also really important to make sure that you're sending it to donors after they made a recent gift. And this kind of goes back to the giving mindset that we just talked about, right? They still have that kind of charitable momentum and they're still feeling really, really connected to your cause. But if you do send these in response to a recent donation, then you might want to make sure that you send these emails of course, after the donation process, but not immediately after. And that might seem like kind of a strange distinction, but there is a reason for this, because after the donation process, many donors assume that there's going to get like some kind of confirmation email or receipt email. And I think myself and like a lot of other people, like if you do any online transactions, you know that like after shopping or after donating, you might not really read that transaction receipt, right? You want to confirm that you got it, but you're not really like taking the time to like look through every detail there. And so if your donor thinks that your matching gift appeal is just a receipt, then they might not even open that email. And they definitely won't think that it requires any action. And so you're going to want to still target donors while they're in that giving mindset, but not when they might discard your email as just like part of their proof of purchase or something like that. So just to kind of summarize this best practice strategy, I recommend creating an initiative to like educate donors, encourage them to take action after their gift has been made, and creating enough context for them in these matching gift emails and sending them when they're really effective. So you can target those donors in the giving mindset. And then the next piece I want to talk about today is creating a matching gift page for your website. So this page can be really simple. It's just a spot on your site dedicated to gift matching information. So I would recommend placing this on your page like with the other ways to give pages on your site so that it's really easy for your viewers to find. I know I keep stressing this like lack of awareness that surrounds gift matching, but having these multiple avenues to educate donors and really keep them aware of the matching gift process can be really beneficial in receiving matching gift requests. And also like this page can tell all visitors about gift matching, of course, and not just your current donors. This is a great strategy because we see, 84% of donors more likely to donate if their gift's going to be matched. So that means if you have this page on your site, it can actually turn website visitors into donors. And also donors who got matching gift information previously, they're going to want a way to access that information again, just in case they want to submit that matching gift request at a later time. So they're going to be interested in having this like trusted source of information to turn to. So instead of sending donors, off your website to check their matching gift eligibility elsewhere, maybe risk them not returning, you can give them a resource to actually check their eligibility on your page itself. And remember, I think some donors, especially who are not familiar with the process, they might be wondering, does XYZ nonprofit accept matching gifts? And not realizing that it's actually their employer who might like make that distinction in their program, as opposed to like the fundraising organization. So if someone is wondering that and like searching the internet for that information, you want to make sure that you can convey to them like, yes, you can send us your matching gifts so that the donor can request that match with confidence and feel good about starting that process. And so just to kind of summarize that, we do want to stress the importance of educating donors, whether they're currently in the donation process or maybe just exploring your site. And so a great way to capture site visitors, of course, is through a dedicated page that just kind of explains gift matching, maybe even gives the donor like general next steps to submit a matching gift request. And so moving on to our final matching gift best practice strategy is tracking your data. So now that we've talked a little bit about like the steps for gift matching, right, you're going to want to make sure that your plan is really effective and sustainable. So I usually tell people to kind of think about 3 important metrics to track. And that's going to be the number of match eligible donations, the number of total match donations, and then of course the total amount of revenue gained from gift matching. So kind of talking a little bit about the value of each, what they can tell you about your matching gift efforts. We can first talk about the importance of match eligible donations. So I'm sure your organization fundraises through a lot of different methods, right? And each of those channels are going to take time, take effort to coordinate. And so when you're focusing on different fundraising methods, you want to think about your return on investment on them. And so when you're thinking about developing, whether it's matching gifts or even general CSR programs, I recommend taking a look through your donor database and seeing what donor employment information that you already have on file. So like one of our best practices obviously involved capturing donor employment information. But if you already have some of that information within your CRM, that's a great thing to look out for and kind of start to assess the scale and the scope of the program that you could kick off. And Double the Donation Online has like plenty of free resources that list companies with popular matching gift programs or companies with the top matching gift programs. And so odds are plenty of your donors will work for one of those matching gift organizations, But it's a great idea to kind of check and see the scalability of this initiative. And of course, later, we'll talk a little bit more about, the option to get that information automated, the option to get more employment information on your donors, but just making sure that you can kind of get a baseline and a general understanding of where your donors fall in that process. And so then number 2, we have the total number of match donations. So once you start actually pushing your donors to consider submitting matching gift requests, you want to delve into what strategies are working and which ones maybe are not working as well. So I recommend tracking the total number of match donations and then maybe seeing what percent of your total donations that they make up. And so that can kind of occur, right? Whether you have a shorter timeline, maybe looking month to month, maybe you have a longer timeline that takes years, just depending on the pace of fundraising at your organization. And of course, it can be hard to equate exact marketing strategies to outcomes, but getting a sense of like what time of year you're seeing the most matches, getting a sense of what campaigns you see the most matches on, and seeing what strategies work and which aren't can allow you to make changes and ensure that you're really using an effective avenue to communicate that with your donors. And then, of course, the end goal of that is to see that percentage of overall donations matched increase over time. And so, of course, if you look at these metrics, you can start to set some benchmarks, maybe see a good way to stay on track. And of course, being flexible. I know I talked a little bit about this earlier, but you never know how long companies might take to actually approve matching gift requests and make that payout. And so you might not get a notification immediately with matching gift fundraising. Because of that, I also recommend encouraging donors to let you know when they've actually submitted their request so that you can kind of get an approximation earlier on in the process. And then the third metric I mentioned is total revenue from gift matching, which is just, of course, like that high level $1 million question, right? Matching gifts could very well turn into one of your most significant sources of CSR revenue, and that's going to be vital information for your organization to know. And so now that hopefully I feel like you know a lot more about CSR, a lot more about matching gift programs, their common roadblocks and best practices, I want to talk a little bit about the automation options that you guys can see through ClickBid and Double the Donation. And so Double the Donation does have a solution called 360 Match Pro, and it integrates directly into the ClickBid platform. And so how it works is that a donor is actually able to make a gift on a giving form, and they are able to identify their corporate match eligibility on the form itself. 360 Match Pro can then provide next steps to submit the matching gift request directly on that donation form confirmation page. So once the donation's actually been submitted, it can give the next steps for the donor to take from there. And then number 3, 360 Match Pro also sends matching gift information directly to donors, either delivering next steps for the donor to take or configuring the eligibility themselves. And then, of course, 360 Match Pro delivers actionable analytics back to your organization. That's something that all of our clients are able to access through their matching gift portal. And so kind of starting with the giving form, this process, I mentioned that search field on the donation form itself. And so how that works is that the streamlined search field can actually auto-complete the donor's entry, whether they begin typing at the beginning, middle, end of their company. Once they start typing in that search bar, they're going to see a list of options come down. And that field is also going to account for major brands, subsidiaries, parent companies, things like that. I think that that's really important because if you've ever done any sort of like data recollection, you've probably seen that it seems like there's like a million ways that donors can come up with to name their company, like a million different naming conventions, whether, someone says the Home Depot, Home Depot, Home Depot Foundation, something like that. They're all talking about the same company, but it can be really hard to streamline that data if you've ever done anything with like data keeping. And so the search tool is cool because as the donor types, we're able to suggest the company that they're referring to and save it all within our database in one clear, easy naming convention format to dig into. And of course, if someone enters a really small company, something not in the database, the donor's entry is still stored as plain text and passed into 360 Match Pro, the matching gift solution. So the point of this search bar, right, is to maintain a streamlined donation process while finding your matching gift opportunities. We don't want to distract the donor during the donation process. We don't want to pull them away into their matching gift request portal too early. But we do want to find out which of your donors qualify for a matching gift program. And so that's exactly what that search field is able to do on the donation form. Next piece is the confirmation page, right? You want to make sure that you're providing follow-ups to your donors right after the donation process. And so this confirmation page can also include a link to the matching gift submission form, along with matching gift guidelines, like really a wealth of information for the donor to digest and kind of see if they should kick off the matching gift process. So that obviously is going to just educate your donor after the giving process and encourage them to take action to kick off their matching gift request. And so, like I've been mentioning a couple times now, right, is that a majority of donors don't actually know what matching gifts are. They're not familiar with these programs. And so, if you want them to check if they're eligible or kick that off, you want to provide that information to them in a way for them to get it quickly and easily understand what you're talking about. So that's exactly what that matching gift plugin is going to be able to do. And then step number 3, we have the automated emails. So after a transaction's gone through, donors are going to be able to receive a follow-up message encouraging them to actually kick off the matching gift process. And those next steps are linked directly in that email, just like they are on the confirmation page. So these emails mean that your donors can actually kick off that matching gift process once again with just one click. And those emails are highly customizable. They can come from your own organization's email domain. They can contain all of your branding, voice, images, all of that is completely customizable. And then, like, of course, I talked about before, you can set sending delays to deliver the email a couple hours or even days after the initial donation, depending on your preference, so that you're not going to actually confuse these messages as a proof of purchase to your donor. And also, these customization settings make it really easy for the donor to feel like this message came from your organization. It's not going to get caught in a spam filter because it's not from like Double the Donations matching gift portal at doublethedonation.com or something. It's going to come directly from your own domain. And so that's kind of obviously the process if we've identified that the donor's match eligible, right? We're able to send them that link to their matching gift program through an email. But the cool thing about this tool is that all donors are actually going to receive a follow-up email, not just those who identified their employer during the donation process. Because let's just say that you have a donor, they made a gift and maybe they never fill out any optional fields. Like that's just not something that they're going to take the time to do. What you can do with 360 Match Pro is actually send them an email where they can discover their eligibility using a link within the email itself. And so say the donor, fills out the donation form, we don't know where they work. They're going to be prompted to enter their employer name from the email. And then 360 Match Pro can, still provide them the next steps to submit their matching gift request and even track the information that they put within that email. So you're still going to have a record of where that donor works. And so, of course, as you probably guessed with this lack of awareness thing, many donors are eligible for matching gifts, even though they might have skipped that company field on the donation form itself. So these emails are really like another touch point, right? They make it really easy for the donor to still identify themselves as match eligible, even if that's something that they skipped during the initial touch points that they had during the donation process. And then the final piece we have is the different data that can be found in the 360 Match Pro portal. And so this portal is something that nonprofits can log into and see just like a wealth of information about their matching gift fundraising. And so that's going to be related to your donors' company information, where they are in the matching gift process, how they're responding to your matching gift emails. All of that can be found in your portal. And that's going to also include, like I said, those kind of granular donor insights, as well as maybe more broad, aggregate data about your matching gift fundraising processes. And so, of course, this automation makes it really simple to be able to kind of track your operations and see what's going on with your matching gift fundraising without you actually having to do any manual data keeping or anything like that. And so now that we've kind of done an overview of these different features, I'm actually going to pull up a demo of the integration itself. And so right here I have here, let me give 1 second to make sure I have this ready for you guys. I have a ClickBid donation form. And so this is just kind of a plain demo form for the purpose of showing off this integration. And you'll notice if you use ClickBid already that this is like a pretty standard donation form, right? We don't see too many changes yet in terms of it being integrated with 360 Match Pro. And so I'm just going to give some kind of dummy donor data going through here, able to show you guys the integration process. And so the only information that's different than maybe a typical ClickBid donation form is this search field down here. So this will probably look familiar, right? Based on the different best practices that I was just showing you guys. So this is where your donor is going to be able to actually enter their company name to identify their match eligibility. So first I'm going to go ahead and fill out the rest of the form so I can show you the full flow. And once we get down to that actual search bar piece, I'm able to show you guys just how um, the donor is able to kind of enter a couple different typing errors, maybe enter some parent companies, some subsidiaries, something like that, so that they can see that the search bar will direct them to the correct information no matter what they're kind of putting in that actual text entry there. And you'll notice too that this is a relatively small field, right? Like I was talking about before, we really don't want to distract the donor from the actual donation process. We want to make sure that all goes seamlessly for them. And so now you see this search bar here, and I've typed in home, and you can see the Home Depot coming down as some suggested text for me to enter here. But even if I have two E's in the word home, as you can see I do, the Home Depot is still going to be the first result that I have, along with some other companies with home in the name. Maybe I have kind of an unusual naming convention. I type in Depot for the Home Depot, that's going to come up as well. So this is pulling from 360 Match Pro's matching gift database so that we can make sure that to direct the donor to the correct next steps after the gift itself has been submitted. And so you can see too that maybe your donor works for a company like ESPN, and ESPN is owned and managed by the Walt Disney Corporation. And so Walt Disney is actually the ones that manage their matching gift program logistics. And so even though the donor works for ESPN, we want to make sure we're mapping them to the Walt Disney's matching gift request page after the donation process. So that's going to be the suggestion that we provide to the donor from that search bar. So my company is based in Atlanta, me, Julia, my real company. And so I'm actually going to do the Home Depot. Usually I do some kind of Atlanta-based company here. And then I'll go ahead and submit my payment. Give me 1 second. I might have used the wrong demo information. I'm going to pull in a different mock credit card. And so once I actually submit my donation itself, like we talked about before, I'm going to be able to have that matching gift call to action on the confirmation screen itself. And so you can see this is the regular thank you page, but that now it has that direct link to the matching gift submission form, which is really cool because it means your donor can click that option and they're going to be taken to the Home Depot's matching gift submission page. We talked a little bit before about how every single company is going to have a different matching gift submission process. And so you want to make sure you're directing donors to their company's specific form. So we'd be able to select that option. The donor could kick off their matching gift process and double that recent gift with just one click. You'll also notice that on the confirmation page, there's a lot of different matching gift insights, specifically about the Home Depot. So your donor could click on the link to see more guidelines and then actually see those guidelines summarized on the matching gift confirmation page as well. And so all of that is pulled out just to make it really easy for your donor to digest their matching gift program and kind of learn a little bit more about the parameters and guidelines that they have after they've submitted their donation itself. So that's kind of the donation form piece, right? But after the donation's been submitted, we also want to communicate to the donors, about their matching gift potential through email. And so I'm going to pull up my donor Jenny's email, and you should be able to see an email coming from the Cat Rescue Club here telling Jenny that her recent donation of $100 is eligible for a matching gift from her employer, the Home Depot. So then it's going to give that call to action, right, with this button here to start the matching gift submission process. And that's really cool because then we have another opportunity for Jenny to click that button and be able to double her donation directly from her email. Now, of course, if Jenny had not entered her company name on the donation form, then this email would prompt her to be able to search for her matching gift eligibility and then be able to find next steps from there. You can also see there's an option here for Jenny to let you know that she's submitted her matching gift request. And that's because even though we can track that Jenny's clicked that button, we still might want that extra verification while we wait for the check to actually come in from the Home Depot. Because like we talked about before, sometimes it can kind of take a while for these organizations to actually fulfill their matching gift requests to approve them. And so we're able to get a little bit more insight by including that option for the donor to select. And then similar to the matching gift plugin that appears on the confirmation page, you can see that we are also able to summarize Jenny's different matching gift information within that email as well. And so we obviously have like a little bit more real estate here too. So we're able to kind of give some additional information about Jenny's matching gift program and kind of a little bit more context in the actual entry part of this email. And then, of course, this is branded to the nonprofit, the Cat Rescue Club. So it has their images, it has their logos, their colors. So we can make sure that that's highly customizable for that nonprofit itself. And so now that we've gone through the donor perspective here, I'm going to go ahead and pull up an example of a matching gift portal. And so this is something that nonprofits have access to kind of learn a little bit more about their matching gift fundraising info. And so I'm going to zoom in a bit here because I know there's a lot of information. And I'm going to point out that you can see Jenny Taylor's recent gift. That's the one we just made, of course, right? For $100. We can see that she works for the Home Depot. And what's really cool is that we can actually see that Jenny initiated her match. So if you guys remember, I selected the option to kick off the matching gift process, both from the confirmation page and from the email. Both of those sources have link tracking. So we can tell that Jenny actually initiated her matching gift request and that she's taken that step to kick off the process. You'll also notice that the company information is highlighted here. So say that you see a lot of your donors, work for the Home Depot or something like that. You can select that option, and you, as the nonprofit, as the fundraiser, can get a bunch of information about the Home Depot's matching gift programs, their guidelines, and kind of how your donors are going to kick off that matching gift process, all from within your portal. And then finally here, I want to point out this emails tab. So we, of course, know that 360 Match Pro is sending these matching gift emails, right? And so you can tell that Jenny has opened her recent email. That's why that email icon is green. It's open. You can see when ones are scheduled to be sent in the future, like a follow-up stream. You can see if different future emails have been disabled by your organization, like maybe you only want to send 1 or 2 or 3, something like that. And then you can even see if you've blocked anyone in your system. Maybe you have a do not email tag on them, and maybe they've unsubscribed from your messages. You can make sure that you're stopping any messages from going to those donors as well. So of course, that's kind of the granular one-by-one data. We can also go to the main dashboard of one of these portals, and you can see a lot of different more aggregated stats as well. So here you'll notice that the total number of donations that have flowed in the platform within the past year is listed on this page. You can see the total number of matches identified within the past year. You can see the amount of donors who are opening different emails in the past year. And then what's really cool here is you can actually see, how your matches are identified in donations, like in dollars per month. So say you have a really big matching gift campaign or push, or maybe you've got a really, new donor base and you want to see how they're responding to those match eligible donors. That's something you can access within your portal. And then finally here as well, you can see the top companies selected by donors in the last year. So I think I mentioned this earlier that let's say you're looking at corporate sponsorship opportunities. It can be really cool to see if any of your donors work for the same corporation, see if maybe you have a highly concentrated industry, something like that. That can all be found within the 360 Match Pro portal as well. So I know that was a lot of information, right? We just went through a very high level, integration demo, talked a lot about CSR, about different matching gift programs. Now that we've really dove into a lot of that, I'd like to spend the last 10 or so minutes answering any questions you guys might have. You can, of course, send any questions in the general chat. I see some of those have populated already. You can send any stuff directly to me. And so I'm going to kind of look through the Q&A right now and see what we have. So first question I noticed is, are Canadian databases and data available? And the answer is yes. I'm actually going to pull something up really quick. So we have some resources online about Canadian matching gifts. And that's something that within 360 Match Pro, nonprofits can actually customize what region their donors live in to make sure that you're getting the right information to the right donors, right? So say you want only your Canadian donors to see that Canadian matching gift info, that's certainly something that you can access from 360 Match Pro. So I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and send a resource in response to that question so you guys can check it out here. All right. So next question here. Some companies also match gifts made by retirees. Does 360 Match Pro track this info also? Yes, so when you're looking at the database info, you can kind of see what donors qualify for matching gift programs and be able to access that as well. And then I see a question about the recording for the webinar. Yeah, so all of the registrants should receive a recording after the presentation has concluded. And that's going to go to whatever email address you use to register. And that is a live link. So if you want to share that with your colleagues or anyone that you think might be interested in matching gifts, you can share that with anyone. It's not specific to your email address. And Jacob, thank you so much for your feedback. I appreciate you commenting on stressing that point. I totally agree. So I was happy to hear that. All right, and I see a question too about how we add information to our database. And that's a great question. So our matching gift database is very extensive. It's very robust. We actually have a full-time team dedicated to maintaining that database. And that's of course, because that's really where a lot of the value add is, right? Is being able to have that information on hand for your donors. So I can actually send another resource in the chat about our matching gift database, because all of that information is available on our website. We have about, I think it's 24,000 companies listed in that database, which comprises, most of the matching gift opportunities people have. So definitely feel free to check that out. I should just put that in the chat for you guys. And I see an option about adding live support for an employee while they fill out forms. So that's a good question. And I think that it's something, we have the support team available for nonprofits and donors as well as they reach out. But as they're actually going through that process, it's really simple for them to kick that off. So once people actually initiate that matching gift process, it's not very common that they're going to be giving up after they've selected that link and have that kind of one-click step to kick off the process. Because once they are able to log into that platform that their employer manages, it's really just a matter of indicating that they've made a gift. And so kind of giving them that easy one-click avenue makes it really simple for them to fill out the process. So we haven't really had a need for any kind of support during the actual steps itself. But we do, of course, have a regular support team available to nonprofits and donors in case that is something that they're interested in talking about. Someone asked about how this works if they use a different financial processor on your website, and that's a good question. And so 360 Match Pro is going to bring the donor directly to their matching gift form, but it's not actually processing donations outside of what you already have for a gift processor. So the cool thing about matching gifts is that the corporation themselves are actually making the gifts directly to your organization, typically in the form of either a paper check or an e-check. And so that's not really going to touch the gift processor, kind of the financial pieces on your website. It's going to kind of happen as a separate gift made from that corporation. So luckily that shouldn't impact any kind of usage with 360 Match Pro or even matching gifts in general. And someone said, what is the best way to get to unknown employer donors immediately or after a period of time? So I'm guessing that that's saying the best way to get them to enter their employer info, right? And so I would definitely say the sooner that you can talk to them, the better. Having them after they've made their donation and kind of in the giving mindset will usually get them at a better time to take action and provide information to you. So I would say if you're kind of trying to segment those between right after the donation or after some time has passed, I would definitely stick to the right after the donation process because they're still going to be more focused on your organization and still have you guys top of mind. I think that's also really important because of those matching gift deadlines that I mentioned earlier. So say you have a donor with unknown eligibility, they make a gift and then they don't hear from you for a couple weeks and then it takes them a couple of weeks to actually fill out the request. It's possible that they could have actually missed their deadline in that time that was lost. And so getting that information to them sooner is going to be better. I still kind of stand by my idea that you don't want to send something right after the donation process, but within a couple hours to a day or two is a perfectly good timeline to reach out to them about, who their employer is and where they work. And someone's asking a little bit about the payment methods that Double the Donation supports. And that's a great question, and it kind of ties back to the previous information I mentioned. And that's that where Double the Donation actually is not processing payment information. What it does is it's able to bring your donors directly to their matching gift form, which has like its own system. Like that's not the donor's not making a payment through that link where they submit a matching gift request form. Instead, what they're doing is they're submitting their request using the information in Double the Donations database, but then that company will fulfill that request by just paying you directly. So the company is actually not like passing funds through Double the Donation. Like we're not going to be a middleman to your organization. You're actually able to get those funds directly from the corporation themselves. And like I said, that could be in the form of like a paper check or an e-check. All right, I'm seeing some of the questions kind of slow down a bit. I'll wait a couple more moments to see if anyone else has any last minute questions. But if not, I really appreciate you guys all being online today, all listening to this presentation. It's been wonderful to present to you all. I know it's a ton of different information to cover. Sorry if I was talking fast at certain times. Sometimes I'm trying to get through a lot of info and make sure I have time for questions, especially when I see people engaged in the chat, which is always really exciting. So appreciate you guys all being on here with me, asking the questions. It was great to talk to you, and I'll stay on a couple more moments, but if you guys have all had all your questions answered, feel free to hop off. It's great to meet with you guys today. Thank you. All right, for those still on here, I see a question about how many donor portals we support. I'm not exactly sure if you're referring to like the 360 Match Pro portal or, like how we source the donors. We do have a 360 Match Pro portal that you can like kind of set up for your organization if you have multi-chapters, things like that. We also have a lot of different integration options if you're talking more about like CRMs or something like that. So I think I'd have to connect with you a little bit more directly and make sure I can answer that question correctly. CRMs, great question. Yeah, so we have about 70 or so integration options. You can check out our website on doubledonation.com to kind of see a full list, but we integrate with a lot of different CRMs. Of course, we integrate with the ClickBid platform, which is amazing, and then a couple other solutions as well. So feel free to check that out. All right, well, thank you everybody so much for being here today. You guys are a wonderful audience. Appreciate all the questions coming in. There's some contact information on the screen. And of course, if you guys have any other questions, you're always welcome to reach out to partners at doubledonation.com. We're happy to chat with you guys. All right, thank you guys.